I love the kitchen. For me, it's not just a place to cook in and eat in, it's a place to live in. And maybe I shouldn't say this because I know it's a terrible cliche, but it's true. The kitchen really is the heart of the home. And what's also true for me is that it doesn't really matter whether I've got time on my hands and I can cook slowly and leisurely, or if I'm really up against it and have to do frantically fast meals. The thing is, if I'm in the kitchen, I'm happy. I have nothing against extravagant eating, believe me, but one of my favourite ways of cooking is just finding whatever's to hand, however initially unpromising, and conjuring these ingredients into something that is exquisite and unexpected. I turn a random assembly of vegetables just on the verge of wilting into a fabulous South Indian curry. I can't bear to throw anything away, not even stale bread. Instead, I turn it into a luscious chocolate chip bread pudding. Forgotten cuts of meat can make for fabulous meals. Pork knuckles are a bit strange, admittedly, but they make for a supper that's as spectacular to eat as it is simple to make. My slightly retro egg and bacon salad elevates the everyday into an easily achieved eating event. And when I haven't got time or energy to shop, I scour the kitchen cupboards and my fridge freezer to come up with my pantry paella. I'm ready to turn shabby into chic. Some of my absolute favourite meals are often the result of a little fruitful foraging in the fridge. I have to say, Monday always finds my fridge left with sort of bits and bobs of vegetables, a bit past their prime, but still good. Now, there may not be enough of any one of these to make up a meal, but together they can be magicked into my South Indian vegetable curry. Want a bit of garlic oil? I mean, obviously you could use ordinary oil and mince in a bit of garlic. I'm lazy. I want my onion cut into half moons, but please don't worry about making them gloriously, gorgeously, translucently thin. Just any old how will do. I don't want the onions to fry so much as soften. And to that end, I want a bit of salt, because what salt does is it lets all the water from the onions come out, so they tend to braise and not brown. That's the idea. Now, what have we got in this lucky dip? Some chilli. This is only a mild curry. It's really more of a spice stew, I suppose. I'm going to take the seeds out of the chilli pepper because my children like this, and I don't think they'd go for it if it was too hot. I love food that's really fiery, so if I were eating this alone, I'd leave the seeds in. Ginger, I mean, that's fantastic for heat too. I know that probably I should peel this, but I just can't be bothered, and I like to think of it as extra fibre. Nice and chewy, but if you wanted to grate it in, you can. This is a go-with-the-flow kind of a recipe. I don't want to give up on heat altogether. So some chilli flakes, just about a quarter of a teaspoon. I mean, these do pack a punch. Now for the aromatics, some ground ginger. I mean, it's gentler than chilli, but very, very deep. For colour, I know it should be for taste too, but really for colour, some turmeric. I've got about a teaspoon of each of these spices, as I have as well some coriander. This darkens everything a bit, but also gives it a fantastic, almost grassy flavour. And the eternal partner for coriander, some cumin. It's sweeter, the same sort of khaki colour, but sweeter. I know it sounds like a lot of spices, and there are, but the flavours marry so well that it's worth it. And anyway, I find I make this so often. Hope you will too. I love this almost violent ochre tangle of onions. So that's the spice base. It's now becoming the liquid foundation. Some vegetable stock. This vegetable stock my way. about just over half a litre of water from the kettle. Into that, some vegetable stock granules. And now a can of coconut milk. This takes it up to about a litre. Thick and rich and creamy. I love the sweetness you get from coconut milk, but balances everything in the kitchen, out of the kitchen. So I want sourness now. That's supplied by tamarind paste. And I suppose it's the tamarind for me that makes everything really have that South Indian flavour. About a tablespoon. Just a little bit of sugar to add, just point up the sweetness. Only a small amount. Turn this up, come to the boil, get my veg ready. This isn't really a very promising piece of cauliflower to feed a family, but once you put it in the curry along with everything else, I mean, it's a fantastic way of using it up. And I kind of reckon maybe a kilo, just under a kilo of leftover vegetables. It doesn't have to be just vegetables. You could easily add some chicken and certainly some noodles, but for now, since I've got these to use up, I'm happy. Some broccoli. Obviously, the vegetables that take longest you put in first to cook, so I think the broccoli and cauliflower will need about 5 to 10 minutes until they're tender, which gives me a bit of time to warm up some flatbreads. They'll only need a few minutes to warm in the oven, and they soak up all that spice wonderfully. Fabulous for dunking. This is such a rhapsody of yellow and green. So to that, I'm going to add, not just because they match, some fine beans and baby corn. Cut those bits off. And some baby sweet corn. I don't know why I love this, because it doesn't really taste it that much, but it's the crunch I go for. The beans and sweet corn won't need very long. In go the sugar snaps. There's something really satisfying, or there is for me, about making supper out of bits and pieces that are lying, lingering and languishing at the bottom of my fridge. The inner housewife in me, I rather fear. My last huzzah, some herbs. I love dill, so sort of aniseedy and fresh, as well as coriander. Dill is really one of those love it or loathe it herbs. If anyone in your family doesn't like licorice, avoid. Them, I mean. Right, so just sprinkle on. That was the easy part. The difficult part is getting the children away from their computers in time. Right. Supper! Want some bread? It's nice, I'm going to.
Can you remember what you called broccoli when you were a baby? You used to call them trees.
I know.
And one each.
I relish a bit of rags to riches cooking, and my chocolate chip bread pudding is a prime example of this. I just love the feeling that when I've got a stale bit of bread in the kitchen, I can turn it into a dinner party treat or stolen solitary indulgence. So this is how I very simply go about it. I get out an oven-proof dish and I grease it. Now, I do this by using an old butter paper. I reckon that for a 23-centimetre dish, I need about 250 grams of bread. So that's about a quarter of a loaf. I leave the crusts on, but I cut the bread into cubes of about 2 to 3 centimetres. I put the cubes of bread in the dish, and don't worry if it looks like you've got too much bread to fit in, because it'll work. On top of the pyramid of bread cubes, scatter about 100 grams of chocolate chips. Your choice which kind they are. I get out a big glass jug and I pour in about half a litre of milk, full-fat milk, I insist. And on top of that, I pour in about 125 millilitres of double cream. On top of the cream and milk in the jug, I add about 40 grams of soft light brown sugar. I crack 3 eggs into this jug, and it's these eggs which turn the liquid into the makings of a voluptuous custard. Still whisking happily away, I add a generous splosh of rum. I suppose I'd say about 2 spoonfuls, but you don't have to add this if you don't want to. I pour the contents of the jug onto the bread cubes in their dish. I try and pour slowly because otherwise the bread pops up too easily. And for longer than I probably should, but I just love the feeling, I press down on the bread just to make sure all of it is submerged in the pale yellow custard to be. I want to make sure the bread cubes really absorb all that lovely liquor, and so I leave the dish out on the counter for about 20 minutes. Finally, I sprinkle about 2 spoonfuls of crunchy demerara sugar on top. This is what helps the crust really become golden and crunchy. I put my pie dish into an oven preheated to 170, and it needs about 40 minutes, and you can tell when it's finished because the top will be glorious and gold and crispy, and underneath will still have a very desirable hint of wobble. I always feel in cooking that there are 2 key elements. You've got time on one hand and cost on the other, and most cooking involves some trade-off between the two. But this is particularly the case with meat. Now, an everyday schedule can't accommodate slow cooking, but when I've got time, I really love to be able to go to the butcher and buy some almost forgotten cut of meat. I think where the traditional cuts really come into their own is with pork, because the thing about the more glamorous cuts of pork is they're too lean, and all the cheaper, slightly uglier maybe cuts are just so delicious. I mean, look at that belly. I know it's going to cook divinely. And that strange bit there, which is near the head, which maybe is going a bit too far even for me, that's the hand and spring, and the knuckle there, which I adore, sort of attaches to the hand. I don't know how to show what it is without getting on all fours, which I feel might be a bit undignified. I think I'd say that the pork knuckle is like this bit that attaches, and it's those knuckles I'm after, or melting meat and crackling. May I have those too, do you think? Those knuckles there? Thank you. Always ready for a pig out. I present to you the pork knuckles. Now, I do admit that pork knuckles might seem quite a strange dinner to do when you have people round, but why be obvious? And now for the holy anointment, 2 teaspoons of salt, and indeed 1 teaspoon, generous, of caraway seeds, and 2 cloves of garlic. And the garlic, minced like this, sort of forms the glue that binds the salt and caraway seeds together and helps stick it to the rind of the pork. I suppose it's really a bit more of a dry rub, but it's not really as if you need any oil on a pork knuckle. Time for the imbrication. Now, the idea here is to rub the salt and caraway and garlic in, getting it right inside some of these slits where the rind has been scored. I mean, you can see that this kind of chunky nugget of flesh is going to make a melting morsel. I think you can get 3 people per knuckle, especially since I'm going to surround the tin with quartered apples and wedged potatoes. I'm going to place these 2 beauties on the onions here, a couple of onions, to provide a kind of flavour flat form. These need a quick blitz straight off in a hot oven, and I mean hot, 220, and then I can get on with chopping the apples and potatoes. There, now they are going to get a lot more cooking and crisped up, but for now, just tumble the apples and potatoes joyously about the tin. After they're all in, I'm going to give the knuckles 2 hours at a lower oven, 170, and this will just make the meat incredibly tender and succulent. And then a final really hot blitz at the end to make sure the crackling is really crunchy. And now, on top of the knuckles, apples and potatoes, a final flourish, some beer, dark ale. Not stout, something amber like this, look. And now, back these beauties go into the oven. Just need a moment to bask in all this bronze beauty. This needs a bit of patience, not my forte, but still. To transfer the apples and potatoes over to the board. I love the way these are suffused, not just with the pork fat, but with the beer that they've been braised with. Now, I know the pork knuckles take a long time to cook, but you don't need to do a thing while they're cooking. So in fact, it's wonderfully lazy. And I'm being lazier still because I've got a friend laying the table for me. So I've left the onions in here. And I don't need to add anything but water. I mean, there's so much flavour in here anyway. In honour of the German inspiration for this meal, I've got some German mustard, some Tafelzimpf, in a charming dimpled beer mug. That's how it came. That's done. An almost instant onion gravy.
Okay, well that all looks lovely. So I wanted to see what you've been... Oh my goodness. This is,
some?
yes, please. It's really cool.
You better not have too much, but...
What are the others having?
Not much, I should think.
Try and give me a...
Okay, listen, I'm going to get this in. Okay, you can follow up my ever-expanding rear. One of the things I love about home cooking is that I know I can have a quick rummage through my fridge and come up with something I really want to eat just using everyday ingredients. It's so reassuring. I know I always have eggs and bacon in the house, and as far as I'm concerned, there are no bad ways of eating either eggs or bacon, and especially in conjunction. Into some cold water. Simple enough to boil them. Right, egg and bacon salad. And I'm showing my vintage here because in the late 80s, egg and bacon salad was much favoured in every restaurant. So just bring the eggs to the boil, let them boil for a minute, and then just leave them standing, no heat, for 10, and then the white is so silky and the yolk doesn't go into that sort of powdery type. It's much more golden with a teeny hint of goo at the centre. I mean, obviously, if you want to, you can just boil them for 10 minutes. If you want the sort of hard-boiled egg you could bounce off someone. I love this. This is escarole. It has a fantastic, slightly bitter edge to it. Those beautiful colours. Right, they've had their minute. Now 10 minutes of sitting serenely, or as serenely as you can in hot water. Now to the bacon. Garlic oil in the pan. I think it's easy just to snip bits of bacon into the pan. Those of a more cautious temperament, or just more sensible people, might want to just snip it earlier and transfer. The wonderful thing about bacon and eggs, I mean, there is a reason why they're always put together. It's the saltiness of the bacon against that rich, oily ooze of egg. Right, that's the eggs. They've had their steeping. Just going to transfer them to a cold bath. This makes them easier to peel, but also stops that sort of green tinge they can get around the yolks. Bacon is ready. Everything is coming together very, very reassuringly. I mean, as you can tell, it's not exactly as if cooking bacon or eggs is difficult. I mean, that looks quite beautiful just as it is. Now, the dressing. You do have to make sure you've turned the flame off underneath the pan, because otherwise, and I speak from experience, you will have a huge fire coming out of the pan. You want it hot though, so a bit of Dijon mustard, a few drops of Worcester sauce, and some soda vinegar. These warm dressings are so fabulous, and you'll have noted I didn't add any more oil, and that's not just because I cooked the bacon in oil, but it's because the dressing is made out of all those salty, bacony juices. Now, the eggs. I am not enormously dexterous, so I don't always peel an egg perfectly. I don't think these things matter. Bit of shell never did anyone any harm. Momentous moment of assembly. See, this is what I like. Can you see it's not powdery, it's not runny. Just... So those 80s restaurants would have been so disapproving about my cack-handedness. But that's why it's so lovely eating at home. Warm dressing, the bacony mustardy dressing. Bit of parsley, not to be fancy, but just to use as extra leaves. Now I know this is quite a big portion for one person, but really most of it is lettuce. Healthy. I'm making what I think of as my pantry paella, and I'm sorry I say paella in English, not Spanish, but that's how I do. Everything that goes into it, really, I can keep on hand, and that's a wonderful warm feeling. So, first of all, we want some saffron, precious, beautiful threads of saffron, and some sherry, about an espresso cupful, Oloroso sherry. And I want these two to heat up together, and I'll turn off the heat once they get to bubbling, just so the flavours intermingle and everything becomes suffused with a glorious gold. Garlic oil, always a favourite of mine. Some warm mat. Get the chopping with my spring onions. When I'm short of time, I tend to use spring onions rather than proper onions, because they just take much less time to cook, and yes, I am that impatient. Anyway, they have a kind of spring-like fresh flavour. into the pan. I'll just turn these a little in the oil before adding the rice. It's proper paella rice, but it doesn't have to be. You could use arborio. Sorry again, Spain. It's 250 grams here. And from here on in, it just goes like this. Some pork I've got left over from the knuckles. And obviously I don't always have leftover pork, but you could easily, and I often do, substitute some chorizo sausages sliced into fat orange coins. Some squid, I keep these in the freezer and just take them out to defrost them in the fridge in the morning. And fruits from the freezer in the form of some prawns. They're uncooked but frozen. And my perennial favourite, the pea. I'm just going to give this a quick stir. Oh, I love the clattering of the prawns. And don't worry, I know they look as if they've been trapped in a glacier now, but they will be fat, coral and succulent later. And I'll stir as I pour in the stock. Stock, i.e. some boiling water, and for that 250 grams of rice, that's about 500 mils of water. There we go. And into their bath, some chicken stock concentrate. And now, I mean, this is like copper in liquid form. The saffron and the sherry. Look at that. Talk about on Golden Pond. Fantastically relaxing thing about the paella is that one is obliged just to let it come to a boil, simmer gently for 15-20 minutes, and you are above all forbidden to stir. Easy. Rice has absorbed the liquid. Everything is as it should be. Quick taste. Bit of white pepper. I'll give it a bit of a fork through. And I'm sorry to be a bore and a nag, because I'm sure I've said this before, but you must never stir rice with anything other than a fork, or it won't fluff up. All I will need to do is sprinkle with coriander and adorn with lemon wedges. Perfect fiesta food for when you have friends over. As indeed I do. Ole. Okay, I'll do the plates if you would dish up. You'll be mother.
I'll be mother.
Okay, I'm going to dive into it and I'm going to squeeze some lemon.
This is really nice. I like the beans, I like the mixture of it.
So does this take hours to make, Nigella?
I'm afraid not. I shouldn't say I'm afraid not, I'm pleased not. About 20 minutes? I dare say a Spanish person would not consider this authentic, but as long as it tastes authentically good, I don't mind.